Stop Now, a social experiment enterprise.
Welcome to Stop Now. I'm Nate.
Hello there, I'm Melissa.
And we are back, Melissa, another week with some great stories, some great conversations for the folks out there. And before we get into that, before we bring on our two special guests this week, Melissa, I just need to check in with you, because if there's one thing we've learned in 2020, and said we got to check in with our friends. So as we get closer to the end of the year, how are you doing this week?
This week, Nate, has been the most interesting week I've had in a while, between the snow and it messing with the technology. And I've been a little out of whack here. I had a contact just breaking my eye, and but for whatever reason, through all of that, I am the happiest this week that I've been in quite a few weeks. So it's just, I'm excited this week. It's Christmas is coming. The year is ending. So it's crazy happening here. But I'm very happy.
It must be the power of that Christmas sweater. I see you.
Oh, yes. I've got my Christmas sweater today. It's got some lights on here. It's Charlie Brown. Got some Snoopy on here. Yes. Very excited, Nate.
Like, that is great. Oh.
Is that my song?
Do I hear what I think I hear, Melissa?
That is my song, Nate. That is Mariah Carey. All I want for Christmas is you. Ooh, don't get me started.
It's our unofficial national anthem around here this time of year. But before we get sidetracked down a whole Mariah Carey tangent, let's bring in our special guest this week, Melissa, because we're in the midst of this festive season, but we've also come, like I was saying earlier, to the end of a very tough, difficult year. And when you kind of go through stuff like that, you want to kind of have conversations that can kind of put everything in perspective. And so we've got two great guests that are joining us this week. Do you want to do the honors, or should I do the honors?
Absolutely. Today we have Barbara Hanson. Hi, Barbara. How you doing?
Hi. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you so much for being here. And we have James Burke. Hey, James. How's it going?
Hi, Melissa. Hi, Nate. Hi, Barbara. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Oh gosh, and we are so excited to have you all here today, and we're gonna talk about things that you guys are doing, and you guys are into the nonprofit and all that. So we are really excited to have you guys here.
Us too, yeah.
This is gonna be a fun show, and before we get into maybe some of the heavier topics, because Barbara has expertise when it comes to talking about child abuse and how we can survivors of going through something like that, how they can recover and how they can live full and productive and fulfilling lives. And James has got some great information to tell us in terms of what he does with Arctic Consulting. And so I feel like we're going to get into some really great conversations with the folks out there. If they're checking us out, they can email us, they can drop a note in there, they can give us a call, and then we can have you guys and girls join the conversation. But before we get into any of that serious stuff, I think what the people really want to know, and it's something that is a burning topic around here. And we can start with you, Barbara. Like, we are in the holiday season. What is one of your favorite holiday traditions or memories, or maybe it's something that a meal or a song? Like, what really makes you feel the most at peace and joyful this time of year?
Wow. Well, as a little girl, I absolutely loved Christmas, and I still do. I love family. That's my most important thing ever, is to have a family that supports me, supports my mission, supports my efforts, is behind me. And not everybody does, and not everybody has. So the ones that do, I keep them in my life, and I'm very choosy that way. But we had our family Christmas last Sunday at a wonderful place in Sudbury, Massachusetts. Maybe you've been there, the Wayside Inn. Have you ever heard of it? The Wayside Inn in Sudbury. It's an old, quaint Paul Revere went there.
Oh.
Henry Ford had his dinners there. So we reserved our own private room because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And we had 2 out of our 3 sons and their children. We have 4 grandchildren. They're not children anymore. They're older, teenagers. And we had a wonderful dinner together. So, and we opened up our presents, and, you know, we were pretty smart, social separating, and had 2 tables and a fireplace and took some pictures. So it was pretty special.
That's awesome, because I think, yes, we are all trying to kind of figure out how can we stay connected in a time where maybe folks can't get to where they want to be and be around friends and family because of everything that's going on with COVID. So that's awesome. James, what about you? Like, is there something specifically that brings you to this holiday season, reminds you of Christmas? You know, maybe a song or a family tradition? Like, what puts you in the mindset of this season?
Yeah, absolutely, Nate. So my family, we live here in Seattle, Washington. I have a wife and I have 2 teenage daughters, and most of our extended family's back on the East Coast. So usually here for Christmas, we will go have Chinese food on Christmas Eve. That's kind of been our tradition. We like that movie, A Christmas Story, where, you know, they kind of did that. So this year, because of COVID and because Seattle, you know, most of us are in lockdown, instead of going to a sit-down restaurant, which we can't really do this year, we're going to go pick up some dim sum. We're going to drive into the city and pick up some dim sum and drive around the city a little bit and enjoy our Christmas Eve that way. So we're looking forward to that.
I love that. And I love Chinese food. That's not a bad one at all.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. So.
What about you, Melissa? Like, is there anything like specifically besides your sweater, which is great? Like, we love your sweater, but is there anything that reminds you of the holiday season?
You know, you said
I think the Grinch stole Melissa's connection for a second. So we're going to try to get Melissa back on.
Well, hey, while we're waiting for her to come back, can I show you? I went to a Christmas party last night on Zoom, and here's my ugly Christmas sweater.
Oh. Oh, yes. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Not really ugly. That's pretty.
Steve says it's pretty. Steve likes it. Is Melissa back with us?
I am, I believe. I hope so. Okay. The Christmas Story, that's definitely like high on the list. Eggnog. I like Southern Comfort eggnog. Not that I put any Southern Comfort in it. Like they do sell it at the grocery store, alcohol free, but that's what I get. And you know, just decorate with the kids, the Christmas tree. I don't get real trees anymore because I don't like the mess to clean up. So I get a fake tree. So we put that together. Like, that's what we did when I was a kid. So that's just our tradition, to put the tree back together out of the box and refluff it. And how about you, Nate? What are your traditions?
I think, you know, kind of continuing the theme that everybody's brought up today is like family, you know, and you know, my family was a military family. My father was in the Navy. So every year, Christmas or New Year's had a different setting, but the constant was that we were all together. And so, you know, just, you know, mom cooking and, you know, dad setting up the tree, and, you know, there'd always be music, you know, particularly like some of those old like Motown Christmas songs, you know, the Jackson 5 or the Temptations, or, you know, Stevie Wonder, Someday at Christmas, and just, you know, just being with each other, because like I said, there was a lot of kind of change from year to year based on where we were, but the one thing that we could always count on was each other. So I think like family is the big thing, and just, you know, just especially now, like I think the older I get, the more I appreciate just taking a couple days to just kind of forget about work, forget about everything, and just, you know, spend time with my parents and my sister, and now, you know, my nieces, and it's a good time. So that's kind of, you know, like my holiday memories and everybody else's holiday memories. But let's talk about some of these issues out there that you know might be on people's minds, because I guess one of the things that I've always kind of been attuned to, Barbara, because my father was a Navy chaplain, so he did a lot of counseling over the years, and one of his busiest times was during the holiday season, because as great and as happy as this time is for a lot of us, it can also be a really tough time for a lot of folks as well. So, Barbara, if you could introduce yourself to the folks out there and let them know, your expertise and just kind of your thoughts about how we can help some folks out there who maybe are not in the most festive of spirits right now.
Am I unmuted now, Nate?
Yes, you are. We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. I mean, Steve. Yeah. Well, I work with addicts. I work with a lot of addicts. So for this time of year, it is a very trying and very hard time for them, and the homeless people especially. And, I've been in and out of crack houses. I've been in and out of drug rehabs with my work. My addiction was codependency with a heroin drug dealer, male prostitute. So I learned pretty quick about his world and what not to do. Men should work with men and women with women, but I didn't know any better. And I entered a very dark place. So I understood from working with not only, I don't work with males anymore, but with women addicts, it's a really difficult time for them to cope with things that'll trigger them. And a lot of times the holidays trigger people that have been abused, such as I was. And they don't know how to go to family. When they go to family, they're triggered by, dysfunctional family that they grew up in. And maybe there's an alcoholic father that they don't want to be with. So they go for a few minutes and escape and go somewhere else where they maybe shouldn't be. So it's a hard time. For me, it wasn't. I grew up in, like you did, with a godly mom and dad, and they loved me like crazy and loved my brother and me. And I really had a really good upbringing, a good solid home. So Christmas for me with my parents was very good. However, when I went to my grandfather's house, it turned tragic. It turned into a crime of incest. So that's just a little tiny bit of my story. And, I don't know how much Steve wants me to share today, because I think he's going to have me back on maybe to share more of my story in a couple weeks.
And I think, first of all, thank you for sharing, Barbara. But when we kind of look at this, and I can put this to you, James, when we look at this time of year, and, as Barbara was mentioning, like everybody didn't have the greatest upbringing. Everybody didn't have the greatest experience, growing up or, later on in their adolescence. And so this time of year can mean different things to different people, especially I think when you put on top of that, like the layer of just 2020 and how I feel like everybody's had some degree of, just their mental health and their attitude just kind of beat on this year in one way, shape, or form. So, maybe like from your perspective and, dealing with, nonprofits and trying to help them, get up and running and all that good stuff with your consultant firm, like, what have you seen? Just kind of just the general attitude of folks this year. I know nothing is normal in 2020, but does it feel like folks are trying to, get back to some semblance of what things usually feel like?
I do. It's definitely been a hard year for everyone, no matter who you are, no matter what background and socioeconomic background you have, what kind of work you do. It's been a hard year. For a lot of the folks I work with, we've all been working from home since February, March. A lot of the offices are closed. Microsoft campus where I used to work is completely closed and everyone's working from home. Same with a lot of the companies. So it's been a really difficult year. Everyone wants to sort of get back to normal, but it's going to be the new normal. It's not going to be what we had going last year before COVID. So people are starting now. There is some hope with the vaccines getting approved, and people are looking forward to 2021 and seeing that things are going to eventually get back to a semblance of what we used to have before COVID. And people are starting to get ready for that. But there's no mistake about it. It's been a tough year for absolutely everybody. And we're all, I think mental health is a real issue that everyone should take stock of themselves and their immediate family and their friends. This is a time during the holidays to reach out to people, to talk to people that you may not have talked to for a while, and check in on them and just make sure that everyone has what they need. And if there's any way you can help, I think this holiday season it could be a season of helping each other.
Yes. Yeah. And before I pass the baton over to Melissa, I did want to follow up on one thing that you mentioned right there, kind of working in the technology space. Like, I think one of the silver linings of this year is we've seen that folks have been able to use technology in different ways, and connect with folks, whether it's business or personal, been able to connect through technology in different ways. What do you think will be, kind of maybe one or two of the lasting positives that could come out of just everything that was happening in 2020?
Yeah, that's a great question. When the COVID pandemic started and everyone was stuck at home, everyone had to figure out how to use Zoom and Microsoft Teams and Skype. And a lot of people that had only dabbled in it before became experts at it.
Yes, I spent, not to interrupt, but I remember vividly my sister and I spending at least 20 or 30 minutes with our folks, trying to get them up to speed on the Zoom and all the new technology. So yes, I'm sure that was an experience a lot of folks had this year.
Absolutely. So a lot of people have learned new skills that they will then be able to apply moving forward and be able to navigate these technologies much easier. Also, companies are realizing that working from home is not a bad word anymore. And some companies are actually saying that they're fine with their employees working from home even after the pandemic is over, because they see that people can be just as productive and efficient. And that there are some benefits to working from home for some people that over having to come into the office every day. Certainly, no one has to deal with long commutes and traffic right now. And that's a very stressful thing for a lot of people. So, there are some positives that will come out of this. I know for myself, even though I know technology pretty well, I was asked to organize a virtual conference. The Mars Society, which is one of the nonprofits I work with, they've had a conference every year. And last year it was at USC, University of Southern California. And we had about 400 people come and talk about Mars. This year they challenged me, James, can you figure out how to do this all online? How do we do a 100% virtual event? And I said, well, we're going to need Zoom, and we're going to need a lot of Zoom accounts, because we're going to keep the schedule we normally have, where we have over 100 talks over 4 days, but we're going to do it all online. And we pulled it off back in October. We got 10,000 attendees, which was just 25 plus times more than we would have normally had. We were able to get every speaker we wanted, including Elon Musk and the NASA administrator. I actually got to interview Elon. I had absolutely no notice. I found myself on a Zoom call with Elon Musk and 1,900 other friends. But we pulled it off, and I was able to ask him some good questions. And, we had a successful event. We had a wildly successful event, actually. And it was transformative for that nonprofit. And so, even someone like me, I learned some new skills. I learned how to pull off a big event like that using Zoom and getting a lot of help from volunteers. But we did it, and it was pretty much flawless. So I was sweating, though, when we had that Zoom call going with Elon, and it was all running off my laptop, both the Zoom call and the live stream. I was sweating a little bit there, but we pulled it off.
Oh, I was thinking about how people are able to go to therapy more often. You guys mentioned, how people have tough times during the holidays, and mental health is such a thing that I think before COVID, a lot of people weren't really thinking about the way that they should have been. But being, on lockdown and being in your house is the way that you have to be, and you're not able to go to your therapist the way that you were able to. I've had so many family members that they look down on therapy prior to this, the shutdowns and everything. And now they're a lot more open to therapy. And now, you're able to do it from the comfort of your bedroom. So I'm really hoping, that they continue to let this be an option. Do you guys believe that after, things are back to normal, that therapy will be something that'll be available through Zoom and stuff like that, telehealth?
Yeah, I mean, I think the pandemic is going to make everyone more flexible. I think people are going to have more options. There's still no substitute for sitting in front of somebody and having a face-to-face conversation. As long as you're able to do that in a safe way. Right now we would need to be wearing a mask and social distancing to be safe. But when everyone's vaccinated and things are somewhat back to normal, I don't think there's going to be any substitute for people still wanting to have those face-to-face interactions across the board, not just therapy, but business and social. But what we've all learned is there's options now. You can have a effective therapy appointment over telemedicine, over a video conferencing call. So that's going to be an option for people moving forward that they didn't have maybe in the past.
Absolutely, that's so true.
And speaking of, moving forward, both on the calendar and also, kind of figuratively, Barbara, people moving forward with their lives. Melissa and James just talked about the importance of mental health. And, as somebody who works in your field, like, what do you think is kind of that first step? Because there might be some folks listening or watching right now that are in a situation where, they're a survivor of abuse and they want to get help, but they don't know how to take that first step. What would you say to them if they were listening right now?
Well, they're really afraid to pick that phone up. They're really afraid to go on my podcast show. They're afraid of everything because they haven't talked about abuse and the crimes that they've gone through, domestic violence or sexual assault or any of the things they've gone through. So when somebody gives me a phone number to call a survivor, I don't call them, because the first step is to pick the phone up and call me. I give my phone out, I give my email out. If people don't contact me, I can't go after people. So that's the hard part. Before I did it, before I enabled, enabling or rescuing or codependency says, I need you to fix that hole inside me only God can fill and fix. I put your needs ahead of mine. I do for you before I do for myself. And you can go hold down a whole list of codependency things. But for a person that's gone through any kind of crime, they really need help and they need to talk. They need to talk to somebody that's been there, somebody that's gone through it. You can call a therapist, you can speak to a therapist, but if they haven't actually gone through it, they haven't walked in my shoes, they really can use the book knowledge and they can help you that way. And I'm not saying they don't, but you really need somebody that understands what you have gone through yourself to be able to help a survivor like me.
And one of the things, like I was on Twitter either yesterday or the day before, and one of the tweets that I saw just kind of scrolling through was from a young serviceman. I want to say he was in his mid-20s, maybe late 20s, but wasn't any older than that. And he was revealing that he had been abused while in the service. And it just got me to thinking, Barbara, like there's a lot of men in particular that I think have trouble with something like this because of the stigma associated with it, where, if you were a survivor of sexual or physical abuse as a man, like that makes you less than. And so I was very proud of the serviceman that had come out on Twitter and, admitted what had happened to him. So what do you think can be done, Barbara? Or is it, again, like what needs to happen for some of these guys to be able to tell their story, because I do feel like if we can get them, or if they're willing to be open and tell their stories, it helps because they're not carrying all of that stuff inside them. And if they don't tell anybody, it can come out in different ways that aren't healthy.
Oh, and it does. It comes out in alcoholism or sexual addictions. Comes out in all kinds of ways that isn't healthy for you. I think it's wonderful that that person on Twitter, because I have a couple Twitter accounts, and a lot of it makes me feel bad because they don't have the answers and they don't have the hope and help that I have had with my life. But for a man to come out with it is very unusual. I've spoken to the U.S. military in Natick, Massachusetts, the Army, on a couple of years ago, and they had me come in, and I did 2 PowerPoint presentations, one in the morning and one in the afternoon with service men and women. And I've had contact with those people since I've spoken on with my codependency PowerPoint, which was rescuing the prisoner when the prisoner was you. And I weave my story along with bullet points that help you understand not only my story, but how to get from A to Z, how to survive, not only survive, but how to thrive and how to have closure with all the things that you've gone through. I mean, it could be your dog gets hit by a car, or your child runs out in the street and gets killed. Now, my mother-in-law had that happen. Her sister ran out in front of a car and got killed, and she was traumatized by that. And she died of dementia. She wasn't even herself in the last quite a few years, and she just died in May. And she told me when I told her, and I didn't discuss it with her about what I'd gone through, but I told her that I had been sexually abused by my grandfather. And she said, oh, all little girls get abused, Bobby. She called me Bobby Joy. And that told me something about her. And then when she shut down, I wasn't surprised, because my husband's father took his life, and that was her husband. So, and they found his body. So that all those traumas, one after the other, gets deeper and deeper and deeper. The more you don't deal with it, the more you shut down, the more you stay shamed. So bringing it up and recalling it and understanding it, getting awareness about it, will help you cope.
That's an excellent point. And Melissa, I believe we have a caller. If I'm reading the note correct here.
Ooh, caller. Let's see. Can you hear us, caller?
Yeah, Melissa, I think they left a note and with a question for James. So this is like on a recent blog post, he was referring to the Bill Gates note. He was fascinated reading that and listening to it. Like, can people really change? So how law differentiates profit and non-profit in the corporate world, like what is the importance, and just to get some thoughts on from James. That's what they have mentioned it.
Okay. Thank you to that caller for leaving us that message. What about that, James? About the blog piece by Bill Gates, and also the differences with the law.
Yeah, well, these days, every large organization, whether it's a for-profit company or a nonprofit, is trying to figure out how they can best help everyone in the community with COVID, with climate change, and all the challenges we're facing, as a nation and as the world. There's a lot of challenges out there. And so I feel like the lines between nonprofits and for-profits are sort of being blurred these days. There's something I've came across recently called a B corporation, where it's a company that's for profit, but it has a sustainability focus. And there's a certification that those companies can get in different states. So, and Gates talked about some of this in his recent blog posts as well. Obviously, he's been really focused with his foundation. He left Microsoft years ago and started the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and they were focused on vaccines in Africa, trying to cure malaria. And obviously with the coronavirus, he's pivoted a lot of what he's done this year to focus on that. He's invested in a pretty large company in Germany that's working on a vaccine, and done a bunch of other, he's been out there on TV talking about staying safe and dealing with the coronavirus. So I think even Mr. Gates, who I used to work for back when I worked at Microsoft, he's out there trying to help the world. And not just with COVID, but with the sustainability that we all need to focus on as well, so that we can save our planet for our children. That's going to be the next big challenge after we defeat COVID.
And I'm wondering, James, like, and I don't want to limit this to just Microsoft, even though you've had experience, a lot of experience with Microsoft, but just corporations in general. Like, do you feel like, and this might be a controversial question to some, but do you feel like there is an obligation to do things that help, whether it's the environment or the communities that the company's located in, or is it just about the money?
No, I absolutely think that every large corporation, every company has an obligation to help humanity, that it shouldn't just be about making money, about profits, about the bottom line, about, the movie Wall Street in the 80s where greed is good. That's a very destructive mindset, and we figured that out. We all can see that now. I think these days it's people talk about the triple bottom line of profit, people, and planet. And so adding in helping your employees, making sure that they are mentally healthy and physically healthy, and are taking good care of their families, have a great work-life balance. That is so important to companies these days. And then back to helping the planet, I know that a lot of oil companies, especially ones in Europe right now, are trying to figure out how they're going to pivot as people start driving electric cars and there's less of a need for oil. How are they going to pivot? How are they going to, have a revenue stream that's sustainability focused? And one of them is storing carbon. There's a lot of Norwegian companies right now, and companies in Britain are looking at how do you store carbon in those abandoned oil wells to help the planet instead of extracting resources out of it. So, no, I definitely think that every company should have some type of story about how they're trying to help those three P's: profit, people, and planet.
I like that, Melissa. Like I've never heard that term before, the triple bottom line. But yeah, I like that because I feel like we've talked about it here on the program, Melissa, that there are a lot of situations and a lot of stories that callers and listeners and viewers have brought us where we talked about the story last week where the employee was done wrong by his employer, and so to hear that maybe the kind of model is shifting and changing and evolving, that's a good thing.
Definitely, Nate. Yeah, I haven't heard that one before. I do like that one that you said there.
You'll get profits, planets, and people t-shirt, and a sweater for next week.
I was gonna say we need a t-shirt, Christmas t-shirt. But what about you, Barbara? Do you think that people can really change? How about you answering the question?
I know they can because I have. Personally, yes. It takes a lot of hard work. Lots of years, understanding, facing your past, including, if you can, those that have abused you, those that have persecuted you, those that have said things about you, and that's not easy. And, it took me decades to face my past. I had no clue how to do it. Nobody told me how to do it. Nobody talked about me. But yeah, anybody can change. And I'm a perfect living miracle and example of inside outside change. Abuse doesn't show on, well, yes, it does. It shows on the outside. You're shut down. The wall is up. You're shamed. And I carried it on my back like a wagon going up a mountain. And up at the top of the mountain, I thought, okay, I'm up here now. What do I do? No, there's a higher mountain to climb. And so you keep climbing and climbing, and you want to get off that mountain. You want to get the shame off your shoulders. And, it took me a long time to do that. But when I did, I'll tell you, the doors started opening, and I even got on your show today, and I wasn't intending to come on your show for a couple of weeks. So I guess there's a purpose for me to be here today.
Yeah. I always say, like, again, maybe it's just, growing up in a house where, both my parents were very spiritual and we were in church all the time.
Yeah.
But, everything happens for a reason. And
Yeah,
so,
amen.
the fact that we were able to talk to you this week, Barbara, and for the folks out there, like there might be somebody watching right now that needed to hear, what you brought to the show today. So, things happen for a reason. That's all I'll say.
They sure do. Thank you.
That's my thing. I always say that everything happens for a reason, whether it's good or bad. You might not like why it happens, and it may not come to light for a very long time, but it does happen for a reason.
Yeah, for me, there was a very definite God-given passion and purpose for me to get where I am now, and I want to share my story with the world, and I'm speaking all over the world. So it's just such a light for me to be able to give that light, even if it's just a tiny little flicker of a candle, to give somebody that light back that says, oh, I need it. I need a light in my dark world. And yeah, we can help each other. And that's what it's about. James mentioned it, and COVID has actually helped me. It hasn't shut me down. Once I started opening my mouth, this woman's been loosed.
Amen. And I think, again, like this, even as we've all kind of collectively around the world and in this country have kind of gone through this year, there are positives that can come from it. And kind of wrapping up on the notion of changing, James, I didn't want to end the show without, kind of talking about your journey. And so, you mentioned to us that you had been with Microsoft for 20 years, and, now, you got your own, consultant firm, Arctic Consulting. And so what was that journey like? What was the spark, I guess, that made you want to change this path in your life? And what are you looking to do out there and help the folks with?
Yeah, thanks, Nate. I worked at Microsoft for a long time, and working in a large corporation is pretty thankless sometimes. There's lots of politics. I really didn't enjoy it. It was extremely stressful. I didn't see my family a lot. Was working nights and weekends sometimes. And so I decided to leave Microsoft and do consulting. I've been at it now since 2011. We started Arctic about 3 years ago. A couple of colleagues of mine and I started Arctic. And we're focused on helping other companies and nonprofits with their technology. We started our nonprofit practice this year because we knew there was going to be a lot of people struggling and a lot of nonprofits needing help with technology, needing help navigating technology this year. And so we've been able to help a few nonprofits here in the Seattle area to get onto Microsoft's offerings. If you're a 501c3 nonprofit organization, then there's free offers out there for you that you can get from Microsoft and Google and Amazon, and we can help you do that. Our company specializes in helping nonprofits get up on the Microsoft 365 offering so they can have email and Microsoft Office. They can use Microsoft Teams to communicate with each other. All that can be free if you're a 501c3 up to 10 users. And you can also get credits from Amazon's AWS cloud-based data center. You can host your website on that. You can get $2,000 a year in credits for free if you're a 501c3 nonprofit. And Google also has a similar package that Microsoft has. And with them, you can get free ads on the Google search engine for your nonprofit. So there's a lot of offerings out there. They're hard to navigate on your own if you're not a technical person. And so that's where we come in. We help nonprofits find those offers, get approved for them, and then make best use of them to improve what they do, to further their mission so that they can be more effective. They can use modern technology effectively. And, I did a webinar last week talking about how nonprofits can apply for grants and have multiple grant proposals being worked on at the same time and how you would track that. I also did a webinar last month about volunteer management. How can a nonprofit that has a lot of volunteers keep track of what everyone's working on, keep track of their hours? And that's important sometimes for reporting to other donors, reporting. A lot of companies will match time. You know, if an employee volunteers at a nonprofit for 10 hours, they'll go send them a check for, you know, $19 an hour that they volunteered, but they have to verify that with the nonprofit. So how does a nonprofit figure out how to verify things like that? We've got solutions that can help them. And so Arctic, we do some work for for-profit companies. We work with the insurance industry, for example, but we really have a passion and a heart as a company, and we want to spend time working with nonprofits and helping them advance their missions. And so that's what we do as well. It's a key aspect.
I think that's so cool that you do that, because there's so much information out there, and I can see how somebody can get seriously lost. So the fact that you're like, hey guys, I'm gonna break it down for you, like that's what's up. That's super cool there. So kudos to you. Both of you guys, really, like, you guys are doing the really good community service out here, because there's some people out here, they just don't know. There's so many resources. I try to Google things, and, the searches are endless. So to have people out here that you can go to and you can just navigate through all of that, and you just have the source right here, it's really awesome that you guys are able to do things like this.
Can I ask James a question?
Sure.
You must be on LinkedIn, right?
I am, yes.
I want to connect with you. So
absolutely.
Send me an email, and I'd like to connect you with him.
I would love to help him, and I put my LinkedIn profile in the chat. I actually have a slide here I can show to you that has my email address, if I could do that real quick. There's my email address at the bottom. Also, the Arctic website is right there too. But yeah, I'd love to connect with you, Barbara, and talk about how we can help your friend.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I love it. That is what this show is all about, making connections with people so we can help each other. I love it. You see that, guys? This is real. This is beautiful. Like, this is authentic. This is not made up. Oh my gosh.
Again, like, there's a reason for everything. Like, there's a reason Barbara was on the show this week. There's a reason James was on the show. And again, like, hopefully, their stories and their journey can be useful to folks out there, because, whether you're talking about somebody that survived abuse, or whether you're talking about somebody that's, running a nonprofit or starting a business, like, I think there's a lot of questions that people have, and they might be ashamed to ask those questions and reach out for help, whether it is personally or whether it's professionally. And so, having both of you on this week, I think helps some folks out there. So we are thankful for that. Thank you.
It's a blessing to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much. I always love helping people, no matter what the situation is.
I knew it. I see, Melissa. I knew Steve was coming in with the time. That's what
I was about to say. I'm overjoyed, but guys.
Sorry, Nate. Like, I don't want to end the show as such. Barbara was quite an amazing, surprising guest. I didn't expect that. Like, she will be on.
I didn't either.
So we should probably connect back and do a separate show. And even with James, I like that rising together on the background. He has a very good message for us. And I wanted even invite him to have a individual show for a longer format. And since I see another caller called in and sent a message, so I wanted to ask more questions. So probably we can do that in another episode. So I don't want to hold everyone for a long time.
Yeah, I'd love to come on again, Steve. The poster behind me is from the conference I mentioned, the Mars Society conference. I could talk a lot about the Mars Society. I've been involved with that for 20 years. And that's a nonprofit that's trying to figure out how to send people to Mars, but also improve STEM education in the United States. And I'm working on a virtual reality project that I hope to put into schools and museums to tell the story of going to Mars. So I'd love to talk more about that sometime.
And I would love to come back on, as you know, too.
Very cool.
Absolutely.
Very cool.
Thank
So we definitely want to thank Barbara Hanson and James Burke for joining us this week. We want to thank you for watching the show this week. Any final thoughts, Melissa, before we bid the people goodbye this week?
Let's just keep this going and, helping each other out, connecting with each other, seeing what each other needs. Nate, I didn't get to mention in the beginning. In the end, I took up your challenge. I'm out here trying to donate food. So, I'm donating right now, and I'm connecting with people and seeing what people need. And now I think I want to do clothes too. So you guys, listening to you, I don't know what I'm going to do next. We got to keep it going, people.
So Barbara and James, we had a challenge to help folks out during this holiday season, and I worked at a soup kitchen for a week, and Melissa is out here donating stuff. So I think I believe it was James that said it earlier, especially this year, we need to kind of look out for each other because we've all had it rough.
Yes.
We will rise together. That's what it says, rising together back there, James.
That's right.
And
we all need to help each other out. It's that kind of year.
Yes. So we want to thank James and Barbara for joining us. We want to thank you all for your support that helps keep our show live. And we'll see you next week and in the weeks to come with more stories and more great guests and more great connections, Melissa. I think that's a good word that you brought up this week.
Absolutely. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel to receive a special gift from us.
Absolutely. Send us an email and the team will be in touch. Again, keep those calls and emails coming. Again, want to thank Barbara, want to thank James, want to thank you, Melissa, for showing up.
A social experiment enterprise. Stop, listen, share. Everyone can make a difference. We are on a mission. Everyone should do something greater in their lifetime. Change the future. Be a proud member. Join us to support, volunteer, and donate.